October 15, 2016. 11:47 p.m. The damp, neon-soaked streets of Amsterdam are alive with the hum of nightlife. But for one man, the party is about to become a prison sentence. Inside a pulsing strip club, Russell Leonard sits 6 pints deep, his judgment dissolved in alcohol and loud music. His phone buzzes violently on the table, vibrating against the sticky surface. It is a message from his boss, Paul Green, a man whose name strikes fear into the hardened criminals of Northern England. The text is short, sharp and desperate. Where are you? Need confirmation now. Leonard ignores it, ordering another round, blissfully unaware that he is the unwitting star of a surveillance operation that would make a spy novel look tame. Just 200 meters away, shrouded in the darkness of a quiet side street, Dutch police officers are huddled inside an unmarked vehicle. Through the green glow of night vision scopes, they are fixated on Leonard's abandoned white van. To a passerby, it is just a parked delivery vehicle. To the police, it is a ticking time bomb containing £1.1 million worth of high-purity amphetamines. But here is the statistic that defies logic, the detail that will leave you reeling. That van, with its £1 million cargo, represents a mere 0.02% of the largest, most sophisticated drug empire in British criminal history. At that exact second, hundreds of miles away, in a secure, windowless facility outside London, the atmosphere is electric. British intelligence officers are watching Leonard's every move via satellite feeds and coordinated ground tracking. This is not a sudden bust. They have been ghosting this operation for 18 months. They know about the £7 billion flowing through Paul Green's network, like an invisible river of dirty money. They know about the legitimate shipping containers filled with vegetables that are hiding millions in narcotics. They even know about the mole source Alpha 7 embedded deep inside Green's organization, feeding them life or death intelligence. What they do not know, however, is that Leonard's reckless drinking session is about to be the butterfly effect that triggers the total collapse of an empire worth more than some small nation's GDP. But this is not the story you think you know about the big fella, Paul Green. Everyone has heard the headlines about the vegetable scam, but what the media never told you is how this operation generated more annual revenue than Netflix, Twitter and Spotify combined. We are going to reveal how they infiltrated the Royal Mail so deeply that your local postman might have unknowingly delivered Class A drugs. We will show you their CIA-level cryptocurrency connections, and how one enforcer's brutal murder in broad daylight connects this white-collar enterprise to Britain's bloodiest crime families. Welcome back to Crime Scene Chronicles, where we do not just recite the police reports, we reveal the secrets that everyone else missed. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button now, because what you are about to discover will fundamentally change how you view organized crime. This was not just a drug bust. This was the dismantling of a corporate-level criminal enterprise that required the synchronized efforts of 5 countries and 347 officers to bring down, and it all started unraveling because one man chose vodka over business. Here is the true, untold story of the night. A £7 billion empire came crashing down. Forget everything you think you know about drug dealers. Erase the image of hooded figures on street corners, or cash stuffed into shoeboxes under a bed. Paul Green was not running a gang. He was presiding over the Amazon of international drug trafficking. To understand the sheer magnitude of this operation, you have to look at the numbers. This criminal enterprise was generating an estimated £7 billion annually. Let that sink in. That is more revenue than TripAdvisor, Domino's Pizza or GameStop generates in a year. This was not just organized crime. It was a shadow Fortune 500 company that just happened to trade in illegal commodities. The corporate structure was so disciplined, it would make legitimate CEOs jealous. At the top sat the CEO, Paul Green, known as the big fella, the visionary who saw logistics where others saw risk. Below him was his CFO, Stephen Martin, who managed financial operations with the precision of a Wall Street banker. Then there was the head of distribution, Mohammed Ovaves, controlling UK networks, and the international operations director, Russell Leonard, handling coordination in the Netherlands. They even had European partners, Johannes Visseers and Barbara Rinbout, managing Dutch logistics. This was a board of directors, complete with hierarchy, distinct responsibilities, and performance targets. But here is what will truly blow your mind: the infrastructure investment. Green did not just rent a few dusty garages, He effectively created a parallel economy. The organization purchased and operated massive industrial facilities across Sheffield, Preston, Leeds, Warrington and Bolton. These were not empty shells. They were fully functioning front companies with legitimate business registrations, VAT numbers, and insurance policies. They had employee payroll systems where warehouse workers packed boxes, completely unaware they were cogs in a multi-billion-pound criminal machine. This is the concept of grey zone economics, where the illegal enterprise is so well camouflaged by legal bureaucracy that it becomes invisible to the naked eye. The supply chain genius was staggering. They had backup suppliers, alternate shipping routes and contingency plans that even global logistics giants would envy. If one pathway across the English Channel was compromised or delayed by customs, the network would switch to a secondary route within 48 hours, without missing a single delivery window. While other criminals were still using disposable burner phones bought at convenience stores, Green's network operated on military-grade encrypted communication systems. They utilized real-time shipment tracking, digital payment systems, and believe it or not, customer service protocols for their criminal clients. If a shipment was late, there was a process to address it. If quality was low, there was a dispute mechanism. This level of commercial sophistication is what made them so dangerous. They did not act like criminals. They acted like businessmen. They understood that violence attracts police. But efficiency builds empires. Before we dive deeper into the technology that eventually betrayed them, smash that like button if you are amazed by this corporate-level criminal operation. It sets the stage for the most ironic downfall in history, a high-tech empire undone by a very low-tech mistake. But first, we need to look at the specific innovation that allowed them to move tons of product right under the noses of customs officers. While authorities were busy trying to track digital footprints, Paul Green's organization was mastering a much older, earthier form of deception. The vegetable smuggling operation was not just clever, it was scientifically revolutionary. Green's team did not just throw drugs into a box of tomatoes and hope for the best. They conducted actual field research into which organic compounds best masked the chemical signature of high-grade narcotics. They tested combinations, analyzed scent molecules, and effectively developed a criminal perfume designed to overwhelm the sensitive noses of sniffer dogs and the patience of human inspectors. The winning formula was a nausea-inducing cocktail of aged garlic, mixed with industrial ginger paste, layered with overripe onions. Imagine the smell for a moment, a pungent, eye-watering wall of odor that hits you the second a container door is cracked open. The scent was so overwhelming that customs officers, physically gagging from the stench, could not bear to inspect the shipments for more than a few minutes. It was a biological firewall. 40 to 50 tons of these pungent vegetables were moving across the border every single week. To put that in perspective, that is enough onions to supply every McDonald's in London for a month. But here is where Green's true genius and madness came into play. Importing 40 tons of produce weekly is one thing. Selling it is another. If they flooded the market with that much garlic and onion every week, prices would crash and competitors would ask questions. They could not sell it without raising suspicion. So they created a circular system. The vegetables would travel from the Netherlands to the UK, acting as a shield for the drugs. Once the drugs were extracted, the same vegetables were shipped back to the Netherlands, only to be re-exported to the UK again a few days later. Sometimes, the same crate of rotting onions made this cross-channel journey 3 or 4 times, providing cover for multiple, multi-million-pound drug shipments. It was a logistics loop that existed solely to facilitate crime. Investigators later calculated that Green's operation wasted over 2,000 tons of perfectly good vegetables. His network had bizarrely become one of the UK's largest sources of intentional food waste, destroying mountains of food, while generating billions in profit. The sheer scale of the purchasing was so massive that it actually created minor fluctuations in Dutch wholesale market prices. This was not just smuggling. It was a mockery of international trade. While honest farmers struggled to move product, Green was shipping tons of it back and forth across the ocean just to hide his real cargo. But while the physical shipments were hidden behind a wall of stench, the digital conversations controlling them were about to be blown wide open. Because while Green thought his onions were the perfect shield, a team of cryptographers in a secure facility outside Paris was about to peel back the layers of his digital defense. While Paul Green thought he was invisible behind his wall of onions, something extraordinary was happening in a secure, climate-controlled facility outside Paris. This was Operation Archimedes, a joint task force that read like the credits of a spy thriller. French cryptographers, British intelligence, Dutch cybercrime specialists, and American NSA analysts, all working in shifts to crack the uncrackable. Their target was EncroChat. To the average person, EncroChat meant nothing. To the underworld, it was the criminal internet. It was a customized, encrypted communication service used by 60,000 users across Europe, all paying a premium for handsets that had no GPS, no camera, and no microphone, solely to guarantee that their messages were completely secure. Paul Green felt safe here. His handle was Duck Farmer, a nod to his cover business. His CFO, Stephen Martin, went by Steelworker. Russell Leonard was Red Phone. They chatted freely, sharing photos of drugs, organizing hits, and discussing money laundering with the casual ease of teenagers texting about homework. For 3 years, authorities banged their heads against the EncroChat firewall. The encryption was military grade. But the breakthrough, when it finally came, was a stroke of digital genius. The French gendarmerie did not break the code. They bypassed it. They managed to push a single software update to the devices. A Trojan horse containing a hidden backdoor. Suddenly, the lights turned on. Investigators were not just looking at metadata, they had access to the device's RAM. They were harvesting 32 million messages spanning 2 years of criminal activity. Through Duck Farmer's messages, police could see everything in real time. Deal negotiations, problem solving, and even personal family conversations. Green was meticulously documenting his own criminal empire without realizing it. But here is the incredible part. Green was not just being watched by algorithms. 5 countries, Britain, the Netherlands, France, Germany, and Belgium, were coordinating surveillance on a counter-terrorism scale. Law enforcement faced an agonizing dilemma: arrest Green immediately based on the chats, or wait to map the entire network. They chose to wait, watch, and record. However, the police had an even deeper secret, one that has never been fully revealed until recently. By late 2017, they knew about shipments before they happened. They knew about route changes before Green's team did. They knew about problems with suppliers before Green himself found out. Why? Because there was a mole inside the organization. Operating as an informant inside a £7 billion criminal network is not just dangerous. It is potentially suicidal. These were not small-time dealers. These were people connected to international networks where betrayal equals bullets. The informant, referred to in court documents only as Source Alpha 7, provided real-time updates on shipment schedules, financial transactions, and internal disputes. The psychological toll on this individual must have been immense. Every day was a performance. One slip of the tongue, one suspicious glance, and they would disappear forever. To this day, the mole's identity remains classified. They testified via video link with heavy voice distortion from an undisclosed location. What we know is that this person has been relocated with a new identity, and will likely never return to their previous life. The price of bringing down Green's empire was erasing their own existence. But while the mole and the malware were gathering evidence, Green made a strategic move that took his operation from merely illegal to institutionally terrifying. He decided that private couriers were too risky, so he infiltrated the one delivery service no one suspects. While everyone, including the police, was fixated on the logistics of Dutch vegetables, Paul Green had achieved something far more disturbing on British soil. He had not just built a drug network, he had successfully infiltrated the United Kingdom's most trusted institution, the Royal Mail. This was not a case of mailing a few packages and hoping they did not get checked. Green's organization had systematically corrupted postal workers in at least 12 major sorting facilities across England. The brilliance of this move was its audacity. Who suspects the postman? The Royal Mail is the circulatory system of the country, delivering millions of items daily. Green turned this national infrastructure into his own private distribution network. Once the drugs arrived via the vegetable shipments and were extracted from their smelly camouflage, they were taken to safe houses, repackaged, and then fed directly into the postal system. Thousands of packages containing heroin, cocaine, and amphetamines were being delivered, using the exact same service that brings you birthday cards, bank statements, and Amazon orders. The scale of the corruption was staggering. Evidence revealed that Green did not just target temporary staff. He went after supervisory positions, people with the authority to override security. checks and redirect packages. In the Manchester mail centre, 3 employees were on the payroll. In Birmingham, 2. London South East had 4 corrupted insiders, and Liverpool had another 2. These were not criminal masterminds. They were ordinary people tempted by life-changing amounts of cash. Corrupted workers were paid £2,000 monthly in cash, plus significant bonuses for high-value shipments. For a postal worker earning a legitimate salary of £22,000 a year, this offer was irresistible. It effectively doubled their income overnight, for simply looking the other way, or scanning a barcode. Green's team provided these insiders with legitimate Royal Mail packaging, valid tracking numbers, and access to internal routing systems. The packages looked genuine, because, in every way except for their content, they were genuine. They moved through the conveyor belts, sat in the sorting vans, and were carried in the bags of unsuspecting postmen. This is the most disturbing aspect of the operation, the insider threat weaponized against society. The vast majority of Royal Mail employees are honest, hard-working people. Yet, because of Green's scheme, thousands of innocent posties were unknowingly acting as drug mules. Green created false addresses and recipient details that looked completely legitimate on the surface. An honest postal worker would pick up a parcel, scan it, drive it to a house, and hand it over, never knowing they had just delivered a kilo of cocaine. They were made complicit in a crime they knew nothing about. Share this video with anyone who has ever wondered how criminal organizations really operate. It is not always about dark alleys. Sometimes it is about corrupting the systems we trust blindly every single day. This institutional infiltration is happening right now in banking, shipping, and logistics. But no matter how sophisticated the system, it always relies on one variable: human reliability. And on a rainy night in Amsterdam, that human variable was about to fail spectacularly. The perfect system was about to be undone by a man who just wanted another drink. Amsterdam, October 15, 2016. The clock struck 9:30 p.m. Russell Leonard and his accomplice had just finished loading the cargo. In the grand scheme of Paul Green's £7 billion empire, this load was insignificant pocket change. The van held 57 kilograms of pure amphetamines with a street value of £1.1 million. It was less than 0.02% of their annual turnover. A routine run they had executed dozens of times before. The plan was simple: drive to the ferry terminal, cross the channel to the UK, deliver the drugs, and collect the payment. But Amsterdam's nightlife has a gravitational pull, and that night, Leonard was weak. Security footage later recovered by police reveals the exact moment the plan derailed. Instead of turning toward the highway, Leonard and his partner parked the van in a public lot in Amsterdam and walked toward the city centre. They were not planning a quick pint, they were planning a bender. Dutch police, watching via long-range cameras, faced an impossible choice. If they arrested them now, they would get the drugs but lose the network. If they waited, they risked losing the suspects in the crowded, winding streets. They decided to wait. What followed was a 7-hour odyssey of stupidity. Leonard and his accomplice embarked on a pub crawl through Amsterdam's most notorious entertainment district. They hit 11 different bars and clubs, drinking heavily, shouting, and drawing attention to themselves at every stop. Meanwhile, the van, the key to a £1 billion investigation, sat unguarded less than 10 kilometers away. Back in the UK, the silence was deafening. Paul Green was staring at his EncroChat device, watching the minutes tick by. The messages reveal a man unraveling in real time. At 11:47 p.m., the first crack in his composure. "Where are you? Need confirmation of delivery schedule." By 1:23 a.m., the tone shifted from annoyance to fear. "Respond immediately. Clients are asking questions." At 3:15 a.m., the threat was explicit: "If you have lost that cargo, there will be consequences." And finally, at 4:42 a.m., a chilling promise of violence: "If the van's gone or been grabbed by police, then there will be murders." By 4:00 a.m., Green's panic had triggered alerts across his entire network. Criminal organizations in Manchester, Liverpool, and London were waking up to bad news. Leonard's drinking session was not just delaying a shipment. It was sending ripples of panic through the UK underworld. At 6:30 a.m., as the sun began to rise over the canals, Leonard and his accomplice finally returned to the van. Security footage shows them stumbling, clearly hungover, rubbing their eyes, completely oblivious to the fact that their freedom had expired hours ago. They climbed in, started the engine, and drove exactly 47 meters. Suddenly, unmarked cars swarmed them from every angle. Body camera footage captured the arrest. Leonard, looking out at the circle of armed officers, uttered 5 words that perfectly summarized the situation. "Oh, this is bad. This is really bad." He was right. It was the beginning of the end. When police opened the van, they found more than just drugs. Because Leonard had been so relaxed, he had left the office in the back seat. Police recovered detailed customer lists, transportation schedules for future shipments, communication devices linking directly to Green's network, and financial records revealing the operation's true scale. Drop a comment below. Do you think Leonard's drinking was just bad luck? Or was it subconscious self-sabotage? Was he becoming reckless because they had been successful for too long? May 5, 2018. Rainhill, Merseyside, 7:00 a.m. The morning air was crisp as John Kinsella, a 53-year-old enforcer with a reputation that preceded him, walked his dogs along a quiet country lane. Beside him was his pregnant partner. It was a domestic scene, peaceful and ordinary, until a man on a mountain bike pedaled up behind them. The cyclist did not speak. He simply stopped, produced a handgun, and shot Kinsella dead in broad daylight. This was not a random act of violence or a robbery gone wrong. This was a professional hit, executed with cold precision. And while the body lay on the tarmac in Merseyside, the shockwaves were felt instantly in Paul Green's headquarters. John Kinsella was not just a notorious underworld figure. He was one of Paul Green's most important customers. Intelligence reports later revealed that Kinsella's organization purchased over £200,000 worth of drugs from Green's network every single month. In the context of Green's £7 billion operation, Kinsella represented just one account, one of hundreds across the UK and Europe, but his murder shattered the illusion that Green was running a clean corporate enterprise. For years, Green and his associates viewed themselves as logistics experts, white-collar criminals who moved commodities like Amazon moves books. They distanced themselves from the gritty, bloody reality of street-level crime. But the Kinsella hit proved that you cannot separate the product from the violence it generates. Green's client list read like a who is who of the UK's most dangerous factions: Merseyside organised crime families, Manchester distribution networks, London money launderers, Scottish gangs, and even Irish Republican Army splinter groups. When Kinsella was murdered, panic ripped through Green's entire network. Criminals who thought they were quietly purchasing product from a safe source suddenly found themselves one degree of separation away from a high-profile murder investigation. Police investigating Kinsella's death began pulling on threads that led straight back to Green. They discovered communications, financial transfers, and supply agreements. This provided crucial evidence linking Green not just to drug trafficking, but to organizations actively involved in murder, extortion, and terrorism. The investigation revealed a terrifying economic reality. Green's operation was the central bank for a significant portion of European crime. The profits from his drugs did not just buy luxury cars and villas. They purchased illegal firearms, corrupted public officials, and financed gang wars. Every kilo of cocaine Green shipped eventually turned into cash that fueled violence on the streets. Even today, the full story behind Kinsella's murder remains murky. The gunman was never conclusively identified, and intelligence suggests the killing was part of a much larger, darker conspiracy extending far beyond Green's network. But for the police tracking Green, this was the final piece of the moral puzzle. They were not just taking down a smuggler, they were cutting off the funding stream for some of the most violent groups in the Western world. This is why Crime Scene Chronicles goes deeper. We do not just tell you about the main crime, we show you how it connects to the bigger picture. Green was not just a drug dealer, he was an engine of chaos. And that engine was about to be shut down permanently. July 2, 2020. 5:00 a.m. The pre-dawn silence was shattered simultaneously across 5 countries. Operation Desert Light, the largest coordinated criminal takedown in European history, had begun. 347 law enforcement officers, executing 73 simultaneous raids, moved under a single command structure linked by real-time military communications. When authorities revealed they had cracked EncroChat, The shockwaves through the underworld were seismic. Over 60,000 criminals across Europe woke up to the realization that every secret message they had sent for 3 years had been read, catalogued, and printed by the police. Paul Green's last EncroChat message was sent at 4:47 a.m. Something's wrong. Too quiet. He had an instinct for danger, but his timing was off by about 30 minutes. At 5:23 a.m., his front door was kicked off its hinges by armed police. Body camera footage shows the CEO of this criminal empire being arrested in his pajamas, disoriented and completely shocked. His arrogance, however, remained intact. As he was handcuffed, his first words to the officers were, "What took you so long?" He genuinely believed he had built a system so complex it was beyond the reach of the law. The raids were a treasure trove. Police recovered £4.2 million in cash, 847 encrypted communication devices, and detailed financial records that mapped the entire operation. They found evidence of corruption involving 23 public officials and documentation of criminal activities spanning 7 years. But the real reckoning came later, in the cold, hard light of the courtroom. Manchester Crown Court, December 2024. The trial of the century for British organised crime. 18 defendants sat in the dock, facing a mountain of 847 pieces of evidence. The prosecution's opening statement was devastating, ladies and gentlemen. What you are about to hear is not just drug trafficking. It is how organised crime evolved into a multinational corporate enterprise, complete with a CEO, a board of directors, and annual shareholders' meetings. Green's lawyers attempted to argue that he was merely a logistics coordinator, unaware of the illicit nature of the cargo. This defense collapsed instantly when prosecutors played high-definition audio recordings of Green explicitly discussing drug purity, street prices, and distribution territories. The evidence was overwhelming. 12,000 EncroChat messages, financial records showing £7 billion in transactions, surveillance footage from 6 countries, and testimony from 34 witnesses. When the guilty verdicts were read, the courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Green showed no emotion as he was convicted on all charges. Judge Paul Lawton's sentencing remarks were brutal and precise. You operated with legitimate business efficiency and criminal organization. Ruthlessness. The harm you caused extends far beyond imported drugs. You distributed addiction, misery, social degradation, and death. The sentences handed down were historic. Paul Green, 32 years. Stephen Martin, 28 years. Mohammed Avives, 27 years. Russell Leonard, the man whose drinking session started it all, 24 years. Under proceeds of crime legislation, they were ordered to pay back £47 million, every traceable penny of their criminal profit. One night of drinking in Amsterdam destroyed a £7 billion criminal empire. Russell Leonard's bar-hopping decision cost more than most countries spend on their entire military budgets. This case changed everything about how we understand modern organized crime. It showed us that criminal organizations now operate like multinational corporations. But it also proved that no matter how sophisticated the encryption, or how clever the logistics, they are still vulnerable to human error. But questions remain. Where is the remaining £4.3 billion in criminal profits? How many other networks are operating at this scale right now? And what new technologies are criminals using to stay ahead? Judge Lawton was right. The true victims were not the men in the dock, but the thousands whose lives were destroyed by the drugs they imported. Hit subscribe now. Our next episode reveals what happened to the remaining billions never recovered, and how law enforcement tracks criminal cryptocurrency in real time. Turn on notifications because next week we are revealing how cryptocurrency funds international terrorism. Before you go, comment below, was Russell Leonard just unlucky? Or was Green's operation bound to fail eventually? Like this video if it opened your eyes to the reality of modern organized crime. This has been Crime Scene Chronicles. We will see you next week for another deep dive into the cases that changed the world.